Hello friends, welcome to FDR India. Let's talk about religion and society today with Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan. Hello sir.
Hello, Ankit.
Sir, there is a debate going on in our neighboring states about religion and it has taken a political color. Public discourse is filled with comments and counter comments and whataboutery. But let's go back to the fundamentals, sir. What is the role or purpose of religion in human society?
It's a great question, Ankit. First of all, I think religion is unique to human society.
Right.
I don't think that animals have religion. Obviously, we can't go into their minds, but there's no evidence. Human beings developed consciousness. No other animal developed it. And you have brain power. And of course, you have the tongue, ability to speak. A combination of this led to religious beliefs and organization on a large scale based on your faith and your beliefs. Swami Vivekananda once said, if an ant can think, and if an ant can imagine a god, the conception of the ant would be, God would be a much bigger ant. Very much like our own conception of gods, much bigger God, Vishwarupa, multiple limbs and so on and so forth. But religion came about as a fetish, as H.G. Wells probably explained it better than anybody else. The ancient human beings did not have a causal relationship. Many things they did not understand why it happened. Some things are obvious. When it rained, the plants sprouted. They could see that. When there was no rainfall for a long time, it was a dry spell, the grass and plants dried up. And there was no water. Therefore, animals are thirsty and some animals died. That they could understand. The relationship is clear. But there are many others where they could not understand the relationship. For instance, let's take a simple thing like the thunder and the lightning. Now, what is the typical belief even today in Indian villages? If you talk to elderly generation, I remember my childhood. Whenever there is a thunder and lightning, they would say, Arjuna, one of the Pandavas, his chariot apparently has a screw, a nuts and bolts. One of those nuts fell to the ground, it became loose. But that is their conception. That thunder and that lightning, a great warrior and his very fast-moving, lightning-fast chariot, and then that nut broke loose and then it fell. So what does it really mean? They didn't understand the causal relationship and therefore they had to imagine something. And this is what is a fetish. When you actually understand the relationship better and establish it, that becomes science.
Right.
So in a way, very curiously, H.G. Wells says, the early religious beliefs are nothing but an attempt at crude but obviously unproved science.
Right.
Over a period of time, because human being with the consciousness and ability to think had to find explanation to things he could not explain, they started worshipping nature basically. Take our own Rig Veda. It was nothing but worship of nature. Your hills and your water bodies and your trees and your animals worshipped. Over time, two broad streams emerged. One is the organized religion of the West. There's one God and no other God except that God. What Richard Dawkins says, a vengeful, angry and jealous God would not accept another God. And if you stray, then the God would punish you. Purgation, Armageddon, and it will be living hell. And that God is always angry. Therefore, you have to propitiate. And monotheistic. The corollary of that is only one God and no other God. Whereas the Indian stream of religion, or even a broader sense, spiritualism, is really accepting multiple beliefs and faiths. You can pray to multiple gods and goddesses, or you need not even imagine a god, or you can think of a god, a Nirakara, the whole universe as God, pantheism as they call it,
Right.
or you can even say there's no God. There's no other system of spiritual beliefs which we call loosely religion in India, which actually embraced atheism or agnosticism. Charvaka, an atheist, is made a part of the pantheon of rishis in Hindu philosophy, which is what is remarkable about the Hindu philosophical beliefs. Multiple beliefs, there's no one God, there's no one truth. That's why that famous saying, Satyam Ekat, Vipra Bahuta. So there may be multiple ways of looking at it, but there's only one truth.
Right.
And to that extent, we should feel good about it. And that's why the heterodox doctrines that emerged from the Hindu belief system, the Buddha, question the understanding of these God or multiple gods, and was actually agnostic and talked about society, Sangham Saranam Gacchami, or Lord Mahavir. These are all heterodox doctrines rebelling against the superstitions and some of the belief systems. And the beauty again of the Hindu philosophical system and spiritual system is that we made them part of the
Yes.
pantheon of gods. Buddha is now one of the avatars, established avatars of Lord Mahavishnu. So that's what's interesting about our own religion. And we must acknowledge that religion did serve a purpose, not only in giving some kind of a pseudo understanding of the causal relationships, but once you have consciousness, you always have this quest: where have I come from? Where do I go? What is this about? Does life have a meaning? There's not a human being who does not ask these questions, including you and I,
Yes.
inevitably. So religion tried to find solutions. Broadly, religion, spirituality, the whole broad gamut of things. And two, at a more practical level, religion is about finding a relationship, a meaningful relationship, viable relationship between the individual and the society. Animals simply lived in small groups only for either breeding together or protecting each other or hunting together, nothing more. Whereas we evolved because of our ability to speak, the brain power, etc., massive and sophisticated societies, large numbers coexisting. Now, unless there is some kind of a ratio in your behavior, society could be chaotic, violent, brutal. Now, as Thomas Hobbes said, but also brutish, nasty, and short human life. So, in order to ensure predictable and sensible human behavior, you require religion. Religion helps you. God tells you to do these 10 commandments or Bhagavad Gita or some other religious edicts. They're all basically about what to do or what not to do. What is the ratio? Individual may pursue her or his own dreams and goals, but it cannot be at the cost of society.
Right.
Therefore, there is a line you cannot cross. It served a purpose. But religion also bred superstition,
Right.
hatred, violence throughout history. So we have to figure out how to retain the best of it for social harmony, how to discard the worst elements which have proved to be so destructive to human society throughout history.
So you mentioned the negative externalities of religion, but we also have a state. We have the government to bring order to a chaotic society. So what is the role of government in addressing the ills of religion?
No, certainly in modern nation states as opposed to ancient states, let's limit this part of the discussion to modern nation state as we understand. We broadly accept certain constitutional goals. Some countries may have constitutions, some may not have. But whether we have constitutions or not, unless you are a tyrannical, despotic, self-serving rulers, generally we have a sense of a vision of society. In the context of India, we can say we have constitutional goals, very grand, noble, humanistic, egalitarian,
Right.
across social groups and across genders, so on and so forth. And with an attempt to fulfill the human potential. But there are always societal mores, religion, social practices, some of them good, some of them very bad. So somewhere we have to bridge this gulf. That is the political process. It's a constant evolution. Every religion, while they did some good, oppressed women. Every religion promoted inequality among human beings on some pretext or other, sometimes color, slavery. Even when there is no color difference in many societies, religion actually promoted or sanctified slavery. And whenever a king conquered another kingdom, then the conquered people became slaves. They had no rights, they had the property. Religion sanctified it. Religion propagated some terrible things like even human sacrifice on occasion, and religion sanctioned violence on occasion against other belief systems or whatever. So while religion did help humanity, it also did immense damage to humanity. And modern nation states, they have discarded the negatives of religion. It's not merely because the nation state, it's also because social evolution simultaneously. Protest movements in all religions arose. In the Hindu philosophical systems, right from Gautama Buddha, right from Mahavir Jain, to many other saints and sants over the years. You take Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhakti movement, your Sant Jnandev, Sant Namdev, and many other saints, and Basaveshwara. And even in modern era, Potuluri Veerabrahmendra Swami and others, they rebelled against religious orthodoxy and caste system and inequality. And they promoted a sense of society, a sense of equality, egalitarianism, even as they promoted spiritualism and the broader religious tenets. So that is social movements and religious movements. But the state, the modern nation state certainly increasingly is acting in a fair and responsible manner to promote what we believe are egalitarian principles and humanitarian principles.
Okay, sir. Points taken. So how do we combat the ills? How do we combat casteism and the position of women?
Let's limit this to Indian context. One of our terrible things, while our religions are much more accepting multiple beliefs and faiths and one of the most embracing systems of faith, our religion certainly caused enormous amount of harm to society by dividing people on caste lines. What is caste? It is determining the merit of a human being by birth, by circumstance of birth, not by the intelligence that nature or God endowed that child with, not by the hard work, not by the public good that the child can promote. So in that sense, it's an extremely cruel system, caste system. And to justify that kind of a division at birth, we have invented all kinds of things like, multiple births and Purva Janma Sukruta or Dushkruta. You're paying for the past sins and all kinds of stuff. Now, obviously, our constitutional scheme, our modern sense of right and wrong does not accept it. Our constitutions and modern notions of governance are based on egalitarianism, a sense of equality by birth and treating all people as equal, and about fulfilling human potential and humanism, respecting the humanity of each individual. And Indian state has been as good as almost any other state in the world in terms of very liberal interpretation and creating a social order through law. But law is not sufficient. Our laws are extremely progressive. They're against caste, against untouchability, against terrible practices against women for generations. They are for promoting equality, a sense of fraternity, and a sense of egalitarianism and humanism. But it's not so much what the state says, it's also what the state does. What is caste? If caste is determining a person's merit by birth irrespective of the ability and work and the outcome, then how can you break that through the state system? You must give quality education to every single child. Once a child can fulfill her potential, the God-given or nature-given potential, and can be equal to any other child from any other community, irrespective of birth, then slowly the discrimination by birth will disappear. Indian state failed spectacularly in that respect. Among the large economies, we probably are the worst affected by failure of education. We all love education, but outcomes are so poor. We have only education on paper, and therefore caste discrimination we are not able to overcome through education. And we have to really work on that. I would say this is the most important goal in promoting equality and opportunity for everybody in the country. But we also must look at politics. In a highly centralized system, people don't understand the link between the vote they give and the consequences that follow in their own personal lives. Like, if I vote, what will happen to the road in front of my house, the park in front of my house, the traffic there, or my children's health, or my kids' schooling, or 100 other things that matter to me on a daily basis. And that's possible, that link is possible only in a very local, decentralized government. We fail to do that. We are one of the most centralized governments in the world. China is far more decentralized. Once that link is missing, political parties are forced to somehow attract the people to vote. And caste has become a very easy way of mobilizing people because these are primordial loyalties. There is a centuries of tradition of caste. Growing up in rural India, most of these families, for generations, they accepted their lot, this caste, that caste. They're also segregated geographically, physically. One caste lives in this pocket, another caste lives here. That is the tradition. So it's easy to mobilize them on caste grounds, shorn of an understanding of their own self-interest and their children's future. That's what's happening. So to break that, you genuinely decentralize power, genuinely, with accountability. And the goal should be to make people see what happens with my vote. If I vote for Ankit, what will happen to my life? Not Mahabharat, Mera Bharat Mahan or something. A simple, practical thing. To me, my kids, what happens to my surroundings? That understanding is lacking in Indian democracy. But these are two things about the state and the political process. But they're not enough. After all, we must recognize that caste has not been created by politics. However bad and sometimes vicious politics is, politics actually in its own way is trying to also reduce the impact of caste because of constitutional edict and also the desire to somehow govern and keep the society in harmony. They're using caste to mobilize, but they're not causing caste friction on a daily basis. Yes, on occasion they are, but in general, it's not fair to say political parties are promoting caste violence every day. That will be an unfair characterization. But they are cynically using caste consciousness for political mobilization. But society, caste came from society, from tradition. Politics came now. Unless there is a social reform movement, as we had for a century or more during freedom struggle and a little after that also, right now there is no serious reform movement in the country to bring a sense of equality among castes and bring people together. Some effort is going on, but not the kind of effort earlier we have witnessed or the kind of effort we need in the country. In addition to that, as individuals, each young person must be enabled to figure out that what matters in your personal life is your happiness. So when you marry, because what is the enduring facet of caste? You marry within the caste.
Right.
If you don't marry within the caste, in 2-3 generations, where is caste? Now, even today, 95% of the marriages, I suspect, we must go into statistics, but I don't think I'm too far wrong. 95% of the marriages are within the caste. Now, if young people, not because of social reform, but their own sense of self-interest, in pursuit of their own happiness, if they learn to choose their own life partners in a responsible way, to seek happiness, is this person compatible with me? Will I be able to give that person happiness? Will I derive happiness? Will we be able to live together and make a family? So only on that basis, it's not a selfless decision, it's a selfish decision, but a sensibly selfish decision. If they start making those choices like that, probably over 2-3 generations, caste will disappear. So you have to work education, governance, particularly local governance, and social reform, and finally, marriage, young people. You cannot force it. You cannot order it by law. It has to come from within in pursuit of your own happiness.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your perspectives on us. This is FDR India. Welcome back next time.